Okay, but if I'm eligible for job training and placement, what about my friend Joe?
We can get you a construction job, but the construction contractors only hire white men, and construction trade unions only accept white men. I know, but what can the VA do?
Hey now. Bill is my friend. He's a good man. I know he'll stand with me. He'll stand up for me.
Now, sir, if you want this home, you need to sign this.
What's that?
This is what we call a racial constrictive covenant. If it says here that you never agree to sell or rent your property to anyone who isn't a Caucasian.
Asian?
White people only.
I'm not signing that.
This agreement is a standard practice everywhere in this country.
You know where you can stick it.
The VA and FHA are offering you an opportunity.
Hey, Bill is my good friend.
I have a friend. What am I supposed to tell him?
We all have friends, son, but we don't talk to them about this. Do you want a chance at owning your own home?
Yes, more than anything.
Hey, man, be careful, Bill.
You can have a family now and provide them a real home.
But it's wrong.
It is wrong.
Everyone signs it. It's all for the best. People want to live among their own kind. Your fat friend will be happier living among his own people. It's only natural.
This is a crock.
You want to be a man who provides the best for his family. Just sign.
Let me see it.
Oh, no.
Oh, God, no. What are you doing? Don't do this.
Bill, think about what you're doing.
Here you go. Sign it and get it over with. We have to protect property values. That's our responsibility here. Think of your neighbors. Their homes are their investments in the future.
Yeah.
No, please don't do this. You know this is wrong. You know in your heart. Please stop. Oh, God, what have you done? What did you do?
Bill, hey, Bill, what have you done?
What are you people looking at? This all happened 70 years ago. Forget about it. It's got nothing to do with anything now. It's got nothing to do with any of you. If I could have found the guy that dreamed up that goddamn piece of paper, that covenant, I would have broken his neck.
But how could you do that? You betrayed your own friend. You betrayed millions of others. It was supposed to be different. No more discrimination. You let them steal the future. You broke our hearts.
Shut up. Just leave me alone. I can't listen to you. Leave me alone. Just leave me alone. Please forgive me and let me be dead.
Yeah, but this is how they exclude us, Bill. This is how they exclude us. This is how they create ghettos. This is how they will suffocate us. And this is how they will suffocate us and our children yet to be born.
Okay.
After World War II in Sacramento, most people of color still lived in the Midtown area west of the Capitol. It was called the West End.
Elsewhere in Sacramento, more and more racial restrictive covenants were drawn up, and white property owners signed them to protect their property values.
So if you were not white and you were looking for a place to rent or maybe even own property,
chances are you ended up in the West End.
Because people who were not white lived there. Banks did not consider the West End good enough to investigate businesses or property improvements or offer mortgages. They drew a great big red line around the West End.
that's called redlining. The West End was redlined.
Yeah, you're right. Black and Mexican families wanting to buy homes had to buy into predatory contract agreements.
Predatory? What do you mean predatory? These contract agreements were
High cost, high interest, with arbitrary added costs. The non-white home buyers could not keep up the payments. They lost everything they invested. They had no equity.
Yeah, now, some of you look so bored by all this real estate talk, but this has to do with how people live to this very day. This was a new kind of enslavement. It ruined people's lives. It ruined people's futures. It could break your spirit. It could break your heart. We still live with it today.
so contract agreements.
Okay, so contract agreements were really designed so that the home buyers would fail and the seller lenders could keep their money and sell and lend the same property over and over again.
Yes.
The bank property would be overpriced with substandard quality and poorly maintained.
Because communities like the West End were redlined by banks, realtors, and FHA appraisers, they were cut off from investment sources. The community deteriorated, and property there lost value.
In this country, art schools and other vital social services, but most particularly art schools, are funded by local property taxes. Where property values are low, schools and community services are underfunded. Where communities are redlined, businesses fail and jobs are few.
Opportunities for the young wither. Frustration and despair grows.
Even so, in the 1950s, the larger economy of Sacramento was growing. The city government and influential business interests saw in the West End
Location.
I forgot how I was doing this. Location. Did I do something?
Yeah, you missing a page?
16.
Oh, there you go.
The West End was targeted for urban renewal.
But what did urban renewal mean? Renewal for who?
The Federal Housing Act of 1949 was supposed to provide federal money to provide quality low-income housing to replace slums.
Initially, the Sacramento City Planning Office announced its urban renewal program would provide new affordable housing for the West End.
In 1954, the Federal Housing Act was amended to minimize the requirement for residential construction and redevelopment sites.
The Sacramento City Planning Office soon eliminated the promised new affordable housing from its plans for the West End.
Instead,
What?
Real estate talk.
Instead, federal money was used to remove existing residential property and develop new expensive commercial property for white-owned businesses that now moved into the West End.
Yeah, it was an early classic example of the urban renewal bait and switch.
Contract agreement home buyers in the West End found that they did not actually have ownership rights to their homes that were sold out from under them by their predatory lenders to the city and new property investors.
Renters were pressured out by rising rents and the continuous elimination of residential property in the West End, now referred to by the property developers and city officials as the redevelopment survey areas.
Cop.
The population of the formerly redlined West End was being evicted.
Many residents organized against redevelopment early on, even defeating the bond measures which were to fund the redevelopment and elimination of their neighborhoods.
The city council struck back by approving the sale of tax allocation bonds. Through most of the 1960s, the struggle by residents of the redevelopment survey area persisted, but gradually they were displaced.
During this time, over 90% of the rental market in the Sacramento area remained closed off to non-whites.
The displaced residents of the West End moved and resettled to what places that were not restricted by racial covenants, most notably Oak Park and the county lands to the south of it. These areas again were redlined by banks and housing lenders.
These places quickly became segregated neighborhoods.
Neighborhoods oppressed with the same treatment and predatory contract lending practices and all other problems of the old West End.
This was resegregation.
It sure was.
My house
Continue.
was in the area.
Continuing. In 1963, the Rumford Fair Housing Bill was drafted by William Byron Rumford, the first black American from Northern California to be elected to the state legislature. Yay.
Rumford.
The bank.
Oh,
Hello. Hello, hello.
yeah, I've got a different.
Hello, hello.
I got an old one.
You say goodbye, we say hello.
You say
The
hello.
California Real Estate Association and the California Apartment Owners Association formed the Committee for Home Protection to oppose the Rumford Bill.
In 1963, here in Sacramento, the California legislature passed the Rumford Fair Housing Act. This act would end racial discrimination by property owners and landlords who refused to rent or sell their property to so-called colored people.
So black people could buy homes and get mortgages without being fleeced and robbed with predatory contract agreements.
Exactly.
While state agencies only began to consider how to enforce the Fair Housing Act, the Sacramento Apartment House and Property Owners Association, along with the Sacramento Real Estate Board, immediately supported and funded the Committee for Home Protection's drive to overturn the Rumford Act and sponsored Proposition 14, a statewide referendum to abolish the fair housing laws.
The Rumford Act was well ahead of its time. It provided that landlords could not deny people housing because of ethnicity, religion, sex, marital status, physical handicap, or familial status.
In 1964, the state referendum, Proposition 14, passed with a very well-funded campaign. 62% of Sacramento's voted in favor of Proposition 14.
No, how could they?
Yeah, right here. It breaks your heart, doesn't it?
So the redlining and racial restricted covenants and the predatory contract agreements continued.
Yes, all across the state of California, Proposition 14 was one of the key root causes of the Watts riots the following year.
But redlining and racial restrictive covenants and contract home sales agreements were common practice all over America.
The federal government cut off all housing funds to California because of Prop 14. I ask you, was that fair?
Nope.
Governor Pat Brown opposed Prop 14. That's why he lost the next election to Ronald Reagan. The California Supreme Court ruled in 1966 that Prop 14 did not violate the California Constitution.
But it did violate the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. And in 1967, the Supreme Court agreed in the Retman versus Mulkey case.
The Federal Fair Housing Act was enacted as Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, passed and signed into law 1 week after the assassination of Martin Luther King.
This Fair Housing Act made it illegal to discriminate in selling and renting housing on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin, right?
Yeah, but still, redlining and contract home sales agreements were common practice almost everywhere. Racial restrictive covenants were now seldom put in writing, but everywhere they persist. The understanding now that certain kinds of people belong in certain neighborhoods and other people belong in other neighborhoods.
And you can't force banks to offer mortgages or property values or doubtful investments, can you?
Over the past decades,
Over the past decades, the Fair Housing Act has seldom been enforced, right?
Right.
Title III of the GI Bill, the FHA, and other government-sponsored housing programs that came after dramatically enhanced the property wealth of working class and middle-class white Americans.
In 1930, only 30% of Americans were homeowners. By the 1960s, more than 60% owned homes.
White families were effectively and substantially enabled to accumulate property and wealth, equity,
Yeah.
and resultant personal capital, which was then handed down from generation to generation.
But families of color, and most particularly black families, were actually and consistently excluded from this process, leaving them to be fleeced and cheated by a predatory home lending market.
So even if we could say that these discriminatory practices and policies died out with the advent of the Fair Housing Act, the fact would remain that the terrible damage was done.
The profound inequality of wealth translates into an inequality of opportunity and quality of life that is so extreme that it seems now a permanent and essential condition of life in America, doesn't it? What do you mean?
What do you mean exactly
What do you,
by profound
yeah, what do you mean
inequality
exactly
of
by
wealth?
profound
What do
inequality
you
of
mean
wealth?
exactly by profound inequality of wealth?
Yeah, I'll tell you what it means by profound equality of wealth.
Oh, that I got a foil driving a boat and you still getting food stamps?
Yeah, something like that. The income of average black adults, 60% of the average white adult.
but that's bad, I suppose. But certainly not such a profound inequality that, as you say,
But the average white American has 5 times the wealth of the average black American.
That is the kind of difference that might never change.
The difference in income between black and white households has hardly changed at all since the day Fair Housing Act was passed into law.
Yeah, we see that guy walking right there with the blanket. That's proof. And also, the average white American household is worth 20 times as much as the average black household.
That is a profound and extreme inequality. So profound and extreme it seems impossible to change.
woo!
Thank you very much. Come again.
You guys are awesome.